335. The cameras monitor all areas of the facility on the interior and exterior with the exception of restrooms. There will be 2 carbon filters provided in the existing mechanical system to ensure that there's no odors outside of the facility and inside, because it cleans the air inside as well. One thing to note with that is there will also be a slight negative pressure. So we're going to adjust the mechanical system to ensure that smells are not escaping the facility through any of those means. We have 32 parking spaces proposed. There's 2-way traffic in the front of the building, and then we're adding traffic that's basically existing at this time. It's not striped that way, but we're restriping that existing lot. The front was resurfaced recently. We're going to do a little bit of patching there, but the back needs to be paved as part of this project, or resurfaced really as part of this process. So we have parking around 3 sides of the building, 1-way traffic around it through the back, and then the front has the 2-way traffic. We do have a dumpster enclosure that will be provided in the south east corner of the site there. All utilities that are to the site are to remain. We do have a series of maple trees that are going to be provided in the grass area on the east side of the property. The right-of-way at the north is to remain along with the sidewalk. If there's any sidewalk repairs that need to be done as part of resurfacing the lot or doing part of the asphalt, we're happy to do that to ensure that that's a walkable area through there. We also are providing an electric car charging station and 2 handicap parking spots. So we support green energy. The green space in the back of the building is actually a fairly large green space behind the existing parking lot. That's going to remain as is. There's no proposed changes. There's about a dozen or so trees in that back lot there, and grass area that'll be professionally maintained by a local company. Exclusive provisioning, they have an emphasis on hiring local, so about in between 10 to 20 jobs depending on how the demand is at this facility. Not all at once, that'll be over the course of several shifts, but at any given time there would be 5 plus or minus employees at the facility, including a manager overseeing it. I believe that is it. It's about 3,500 square feet. There's no proposed additions to the building. At this time, it's just a gut kind of the interior and change for this use. So happy to answer any questions that you'd have.
Any thoughts of drive out to Bowes Road? Back entrance.
No, not at this time.
Okay.
Any thoughts of using it to come in from Bowes Road?
We've looked at that, but there's just going through the approval process of getting the additional curb cut, cutting a lot of the landscaping back there. That is kind of a nice green barrier between there that we have. They'd like to keep that if possible. I mean, if we needed it for an access on that, they'd be happy to entertain that. But we had not planned on having any access off of that. We were trying to leave as much green space on the site as possible.
Commissioners, any other questions? Thank you. Cody? Andy, would you walk us through it then? Thank you.
So this is the second time in the last 2 or 3 months where we looked at this specific property. We did have an application for it like 2 months ago, and the applicant ended up withdrawing. This property here has an area of 1.4 acres. It's kind of split zone between C3 and industrial. Most of the improvements here are within the C3 district. As the applicant mentioned, this is a marijuana retailer. They've not proposed growing, they've not proposed any sort of consumption on the property. And it's an existing building, so I think we all know where we're talking about, where the Galaxy sign is. It's between the Lake Michigan Credit Union and the garage of Lowell repair shop. So in terms of the site plan, that there are a number of issues or items that are missing on the site plan, just in terms of completeness. We see this a lot when we have an existing property, and we're typically comfortable with having site plans that are maybe less complete than we would ordinarily require for a new building because everything's already there. Um, There are a handful of comments also with respect to completeness in terms of just like the isolation map, although we know that it meets the requirements for the isolation radius for marijuana establishments. And a couple other, fairly minor issues are missing. Overall, it's one of the more, it's a fairly complete package that they've provided us here. The building meets setback height and lot requirements for the C3 district. As far as landscaping is concerned, as the applicant mentioned, there's a lot of trees in the rear of the site, kind of adjacent to Bowes Road. There is front yard landscaping required by the ordinance as well, and none of that is proposed on the site plan. So based on the width of the lot, it would need 5 trees and 15 shrubs. They've not proposed anything along the front property line, and it's primarily because all that space is taken up with parking. And we get to the overall circulation access in a minute, but it's kind of a unique site because this property does not have its own curb cut to Main Street. And so access to this property would come from the Lake Michigan Credit Union site, and their access actually comes from a shared driveway between them and the AutoZone, which is one parcel further to the east. So someone coming in based on the plan proposed would actually pull in the AutoZone / LMCU driveway and then drive east all the way across Lake Michigan Credit Union parking lot, and then enter the site that way. There's physically a connection between this property and the garage of Lowell, which is directly to the west. The garage of Lowell has some barrels or bollards kind of in between there that preclude access from going back and forth. And I don't know if there is like an easement or an agreement in place for access to this property. I think there is for Lake Michigan Credit Union, because I believe that we looked at that at the time that we looked at the credit union several years ago, but we should put, if you were to include it, or to approve it, one of the things I would want to see included as a condition of approval would be, making sure that there is legal access to the site through LMCU, and then if there is access that needs to be provided through the garage property, that we need to get that taken care of as well, so we have access to the site.
Because that's the one that's closer, actually.
Yes, you're right.
By far.
Yep.
You can go in between the tires and get there.
That's probably not desired or recommended. So that's something that, to some degree, would need to be worked out between the applicant and the adjacent property owners. If they do want to have their own curb cut, I suppose they could apply for one, that would be fine, although it's not shown on the site plan, so they'll need to update the site plan. And of course, MDOT reviews and approves permits for new driveways. Typically, they like to minimize the number of driveways that you have along Main Street because you're minimizing conflicts and intersections and things like that. So traffic tends to move better and a little bit safer when you don't have so many driveways, but obviously it is important that they be provided some method of legally accessing the site.
That's why I thought Bowes Road would be a good exit.
Okay, so back to landscaping. So typically, the zoning ordinance requires a landscape area in the front yard. So in this case, the property line is coincident with generally with the inside of the sidewalk that runs in front of it. So they would be, like Lake Michigan Credit Union directly to their east, they would be required to have a 10 or 15 foot deep, planted strip there that has some trees and some shrubs in it, which is what LMCU has. They have not proposed that because it's taken up with parking, and instead they have proposed some trees on the eastern boundary of the site. There's, I think, 7 trees proposed there that kind of separate this parking lot from the Lake Michigan Credit Union to the east. In terms of parking, the 18 spaces would be required by the zoning ordinance. They have provided 32. With previous marijuana establishments, the city has required, some additional beyond the minimum, and so they're already 14 over. And so we feel like that is likely an adequate amount of parking spaces, although again, when considered in conjunction with the landscaping requirements, that's going to be something for the planning commission to think about when it comes to the site plan review, because if you require the landscaping in the front, then that's going to eat up all that parking, and so they might have to think about something different there, or find some other way to accommodate the expected traffic on the property. Let's see, they proposed a wall sign on the building elevation plans. I assume they will want a ground sign or a freestanding pole sign along Main Street as well. That's fine, we would just address that after the fact when you ask for a sign permit, and an operating license from the city of Lowell obviously is going to be required as well. Are there questions at this point before we get into the site plan review standards?
The only question I have really is the access through that garage. That would be the logical one.
Mm-hmm.
And so we obviously need the easement rights going in both to CU also.
Right. I vaguely recall several years ago that I don't know if there's a legal agreement between this property and the garage. I think there is with LMCU, but I'm not 100% on that. So, I mean, that could be, again, if you were inclined to approve it, that could be addressed as a condition of approval.
Right.
Or, if you want the applicant to address this and any other issues, obviously those could be, addressed by the applicant if you wanted to postpone the decision for a month.
We can use it as a condition at this point. It's fine.
And if I may weigh in on
Sure.
MDOT, we have talked to MDOT about adding a curb cut on this, and they said there's about a 10% chance they would give it to us. They said they would highly recommend not having it, because it would be so close to the other curb cut right next to it from a traffic standpoint, that they said that the existing access there would be the preferred route. They said it'd be no different than like a strip mall. Cars go in and out of the strip mall that way. So they said that they would highly recommend not going through the process. I mean, we can still obviously apply for it, but they said there's about a 90% chance it would be denied if we went through with that.
Do you know what I'm looking at the map here, the satellite imagery, it looks like the one to the west would be the most useful, but they have a barrier set up. What is,
We got like tires stacked up.
Yep.
yeah, what is, have you talked to the adjacent properties, or what is the ruling on?
I have not personally. I know the owners that are purchasing this have talked with them, and they're working on some sort of agreement. I don't know where that stands at this point, but I do know that that was in discussion.
They put all the tires up there for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, the satellite for AutoZone and the Lake Michigan Credit Union, looks like AutoZone maintains it. So I don't know if you can even access through that one.
You can.
You can.
I mean, you can access
It's
it,
just
but
a long way to
Yeah,
go.
you got to go all the way across Lake Michigan Credit Union's property.
Even a place for them,
I believe there is an easement to use that one. Yep. And MDOT had said that they were fine with that as well.
Make a comment?
Yes, please come on up and give us your name and address, please.
My name is Neil Mills. I happen to be the owner of the parcel they're at. I was also the owner of the property to the Lake Michigan Credit Union sits on AutoZone. MDOT required a drive that it looks like was originally AutoZone, because AutoZone was the first person there. MDOT required that entrance to serve that whole strip. And there's an easement. AutoZone doesn't own that entrance. There's an easement for AutoZone, Lake Michigan, and what I currently still own. That's the answer to your question.
actually does.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
So if you did a deed search, you're going to find an easement for all three businesses. and all 3 parcels will do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sir, do you,
Yeah.
sir,
Yeah.
do you know, is there an easement going to the garage?
The problem with that is, not to put Otis on you guys, when the city allowed that split with the parcel to the west, which is now the garage of Lowell, and what I own, they allowed a non-conforming split and did request an easement be given for that entrance. Technically, that entrance doesn't exist because nobody has an easement to it. It's just sitting there and no one will fix the problem. MDOT could step in and say, hey, let's adjust this, everybody's cool. MDOT has refused to do that. Garage of Lowell won't play ball. So it's a matter of finesse. And the purchasers that have been talking to me have been trying to finesse Garage of Lowell. Let's see if we can fix this.
That's your safe question.
As an
Right.
alternative.
Okay,
So-
thank you. Thank you,
So,
sir.
right.
No, thank you. Okay,
All right, that generally tracks with what my impression is of the
right,
site.
right. Okay, any other questions before we go to the site plan review standards? Let's continue then to the site plan review standards, A through F.
All right, item A, that the use is proposed not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. Uses and structure located on the site shall be planned to take into account topography, size of the property, uses on adjoining property, etc. So they're proposing a marijuana retail establishment in an existing building. Updates would be made to the building exterior with new materials, additional landscaping to the east and resurfaced parking lot. The site's flat and topography wouldn't change very much. Surrounding land uses are primarily business or industrial, with adjacent properties in C3 or industrial as well. There is a residential use to the southeast, although, you know, all the trees back there seem like they form a pretty good buffer between that and this and other uses on Main Street. So considering the commercial and industrial land use pattern along West Main Street, we don't think the use is going to impede a normal and orderly development of surrounding uses. Item B, safe, convenient, uncongested, and well-defined vehicular and pedestrian circulation shall be provided for ingress and egress points and within the site. Drive streets and other circulation routes shall be designed to promote safe and efficient travel. So we talked about this already for the most part. You know, I tend to agree with you that if they can get access to the garage, that would be better. What they have now, I think, is acceptable. And when Lake Michigan Credit Union first applied, they also wanted their own driveway on West Main, and MDOT said no way. And that's why they took the access from the spot they did. We also mentioned in our staff report that there's like a gravel 2-track kind of thing, it looks like, coming up from Bowes Road. I would prefer that not be used, just because I think the frontage on West Main is where most of the traffic is going to come from anyways. Grand Rapids gravel was approved on Bowes Road anyways, kind of in that same general area, so I think if I can minimize, traffic down there in the first place, due to that use, and I think that, the overwhelming, number of customers are going to be using the Main Street access point. So, we wrote in here that it's our preference that be closed or not used, or whatever you want to say. From a pedestrian perspective, obviously there's a sidewalk there, but, to be honest, there's not a lot of pedestrian activity down here. With some commercial uses, the planning commission has required some kind of a pedestrian walkway to connect the front of the business to the sidewalk. You haven't required that for most of these marijuana facilities, but you do for like the Culvers and the Banks and the Jimmy John's and those kinds of things. So again, that's up to the planning commission's discretion there. Item C, the arrangement of public or private vehicular and pedestrian connections to existing and planned streets in the area shall be planned to provide safe and efficient circulation systems for traffic within the city. Again, we talked about this, at a minimum, maintaining this current arrangement with Lake Michigan Credit Union is fine. They can also have access through the garage, that would be fine too, I guess. have a problem with them having access to both the east and the west. The more vehicles can be taken off of Main Street and the fewer turning movements that are happening between properties and onto Main Street, I think is better, just because you're reducing risk for collisions and things like that. Item D, removal or alteration of significant natural features shall be restricted to those areas which are reasonably necessary to develop the site. Green belts must be continuously maintained. They're not proposing to remove or alter any natural features. We talked about landscaping. They're short on what would be required, from Main Street to that frontage landscaping there. And obviously, if you require landscaping along that sidewalk there, then they're going to have to rethink how the parking is laid out on the site as well. So that's just something for the planning commission to consider. Item E, satisfactory assurance shall be provided that requirements of all other applicable ordinances, codes, and requirements of the city shall be met, which would be a condition of approval. Then F addresses consistency with the intent of the zoning district and the master plan. The intent of the zoning district is to permit a mixture of residential, office, and commercial uses. This district offers more auto-oriented uses, and that wouldn't always be compatible with residential uses. And the building was previously approved for the site, and the improvements are similar to what was there before. This is permitted by special land use, and it generally aligns with the intent of the C3 district. And then with respect to the master plan, similar to the previous site, this is also in that highway business future land use category, because it's pretty much right across the street. That's intended for retail, office, and service uses that are oriented towards automobile traffic, and again, primarily corresponds with C3, and that's where it's zoned, so I think it is in compliance with the master plan as well. And that concludes the site plan review standards, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions on the site plan review standards? General public then, is there any questions? I will then make the motion that we accept the site plan review standards with our normal conditions attached, A through F. Is there a second for that?
I'll second.
And discussion? Sue, voice vote please.
Commissioner Canwalder,
Yes.
Commissioner Ellis,
Yes.
Commissioner Padula,
Yes.
Commissioner Plank,
Yes.
Commissioner Shrabbin,
Yes.
and Chair Barker.
Yes. We will now move on to the special land use review standards, A through F again.
Standard A, the proposed special land use shall be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained to be harmonious in appearance with the existing or intended character of the area. Our comments here, again, this is the reuse of the building, so resurfacing the parking lot, increasing the landscaping, residing the building. Exterior improvements are expected to remain appropriate in appearance and construction with the surrounding properties. Land use pattern is going to be consistent with what's there as well, so we do not expect it to change the essential character of the area. And then again here we talk about, the operational aspects specifically with respect to traffic. So because the site does not contain its own curb cut, cross-access agreements are necessary to accommodate this through adjacent properties. So if there isn't an agreement in place with the properties to the north, a copy of that being submitted to the city would be helpful, and that's, I think, addressed as a condition of approval. And then again, we write in here that additional landscaping along Main Street should be considered to be consistent with the intended character of the vicinity. And as far as landscaping is concerned, we largely wrote that because Lake Michigan Credit Union, did a pretty nice job of landscaping in front of their building, and so I think it does make sense. If the planning commission is inclined to require that something along those lines be continued, to the next parcel down to the west, so you have kind of a nice landscape area there in front of those businesses. Item B requires that it be consistent with the master plan, which we discussed already. The plan has it in the highway business future land use category, which is generally consistent with what's proposed here. Item C, the land use shall be adequately served by essential public facilities and services such as highways, streets, police, fire, etc. There are facilities servicing the site presently. There's no grow or cultivation happening on site, so we don't anticipate those public facilities being more than what's necessary beyond a typical retail operation. One thing one comment that I do have here is the site plan doesn't address whether or not it would be connected to water and or sewer services. I'm almost positive that Lake Michigan Credit Union is on a septic and possibly a well. So that, again, I'm thinking with the previous application, that's something that the planning commission might want to address, or if they have questions about what they're going to use, that might be helpful. I will say though that, again, because this is a retail operation, we don't anticipate, some of the heavy, water, wastewater type of uses that we would see with other types of facilities. Where am I? Item D, sorry. The proposed special land use shall not create excessive additional requirements at public cost for public facilities and services. Again, same thing. So if there are utility plans, they'll need to coordinate with the city DPW. Any permits for the well or the septic system will go through the Kent County Health Department. If they're connecting to public water and sewer, they'd have to connect and coordinate with the city on those. Item E, the proposed special land use shall not involve use of activities, processes, materials, or equipment that would be detrimental to any person's property or the general welfare. As a retailer, there would be no on-site consumption. The narrative states this would be strongly enforced. There's an odor control plan also included with the project narrative, which, again, it contains the information that we often see with negative air pressure in the building and filtration in the HVAC system. And then item F is that the proposed special land use shall comply with all applicable federal, state, and local requirements, and copies of all permits shall be submitted to the city, which would be addressed as a condition of approval.
Commissioners, any questions on the special land use review standards, A through F?
So the comment about, consider additional landscaping along Main Street, being consistent with the West Michigan Credit Union from the drawing here, I'm not entirely clear on where that additional landscaping would go. If there's the drive, are you talking about in order to be consistent with West Michigan Credit Union, would it be in the grassy median between the drive, or would it be? Yeah, right.
Continue it down.
Continue down.
So how did you get with where the drive is there?
And that's what the issues with the parking that we'd be talking about.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Colin, it's in that area, if I'm not mistaken, that area where the parking spaces are 1 through 10? Is that what you're looking at, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you have to leave room on both the left-hand side of that and right-hand side for access.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think since they've got like double the parking spaces that are required there.
Right.
Those 10 could be, if you wanted to do that, it wouldn't be that big a deal.
I would rather see the continuous,
Along Main
buffer.
Street, yeah.
Keep it as uniform as possible.
Right.
If I may, the only concern we had with that was obstructing views. So if we are able to use the access directly to the west of that, and we have trees all right along there, that's going to kind of create a blind spot as you're coming in or out of there. Same thing as you're turning into the property there, there's going to be a bit of a buffer. If we put trees all on the front of that, that's what our concern was. That's why we had just proposed putting those trees on the east side. And then again, there's 12 plus trees and countless shrubs in the back portion of the project there. But we were just concerned about the visibility lines along the front.
And did you remember on the credit union side of it, and we don't have that on this drawing here, as to where their trees are they on the road side of the sidewalk?
No, they're between the building and and their parking area. So there's about probably 20 feet between the sidewalk and the edge of Main Street. So we didn't have any visibility concerns there, because if you're in a car and you're pulling out, you're well beyond the required landscaping.
Yeah, if you
And
look
at
at
that
satellite
point,
imagery and the landscaping, the shrubs are on the building side of the sidewalk.
Right, they're on the inside.
So the obstruction of traffic, I don't think would be,
So that would be like where spaces 11 through 16 are on our proposed plan, correct?
No, 1 through 10. Yep.
Okay.
And how many trees is required, recall, and bushes or shrubs?
5 trees and 15 shrubs.
Yeah, the ordinance requires 1 tree and 3 shrubs for 30 feet, I believe. Maybe it's 20 feet, I can't remember. But anyways, yeah, I think it is 2. So, you know, now, again, you can, if there are concerns about what's feasible or what's unique to the site, you can certainly modify that to some degree, but I think just in terms of consistency with what you've required from other applicants, you know, what you required from, Lake Michigan, for example, I think it makes sense to kind of.
So in relationship here,
Issues that they lose a bunch of parking if you make a requirement, so they have to redesign the site around that a little bit as well.
in relationship to what I'm looking at here, would the credit union site be in the access area there or closer to the sidewalk?
Yeah, so the aerial that they have on the site plan is old.
So it's right next to the sidewalk. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, the place, so that stripe they have
Right
there is basically right where the credit union's landscaping is presently.
Right.
Um,
It's right over.
Yeah. So it's, again, it's possible if that whole thing shifts to the south a little bit, they could still make the requirement for a 24-foot wide drive aisle width to have two-way parking, you know, along each side at a 90-degree angle, and still include some landscaping, you know, between the sidewalk and then the edge of that parking space.
And we have 38 feet approximately for the traffic, so we have plenty of room to pull that back.
Yeah, so they could pull that back by 14 feet, you get down to 24. Pretty sure that would be adequate room for them to add in the required landscaping. So-
Yeah, I would recommend that we do that we continue that pattern all the way across.
Yes.
I mean, it's just absolutely, because the other thing is the trees, while nice, separating the credit union, really don't do much to the Main Street access. I mean, you know, it just separates it from the credit union. So while that would be nice, I would much rather see them go along that front there. What are you in agreement on that?
I think so.
And that still gives them plenty of parking spots. Correct?
I mean, so it's, if they can shift everything to the south, maintain the width for the drive aisle, then they might not have to lose any parking spaces. Maybe, you know, 1 or 2, but, you know, again, because where they show that driveway coming in right up to the sidewalk, that's not actually where it is anymore. That's where it is on this older aerial, but this is several years older. So the whole thing might shift south, so they might not have to lose any parking.
Right. Right. And even if they have to lose a few, that's more than enough.
Right, or they could also, I mean, there's room to the south of the property as well. They could, you know, where spots 23 through 32 is,
Could expand.
they could expand that if they need it, or they could add it as deferred parking if they don't think they're going to need it.
Right.
So they could demonstrate it on the site plan to show that it's there, but not actually build it, so they don't have them paving everything for no reason.
Right.
And then if it becomes an issue, then they can add it later on. So I think there's a number of options here that might work.
Commissioners, does that work for you to have the deferred parking in the back there so that they don't have to incur the expense, and yet it's available if they need it at some future date? And then go with the requirements along Main Street there.
Yeah, I'd like to see it continued down there.
Yeah. Yeah, same kind of trees and whole nine yards.
So one suggestion then could be that you're required that the applicant submit a landscape plan and an updated site plan that kind of shows what we've talked about here tonight. And then again, you can either have it for staff approval, or if you prefer to see it, have the planning commission look at next month, that's up to you guys.
I'm fine with staff approval.
Yeah.
We're all in agreement with what we want here, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, let's do that as a condition.
This could affect it. What are our limitations as the city to, I know we are trying to connect all of the parking lots and the new buildings outside of the highway there. What is our ability to say, hey, you gotta allow access between the garage and this facility? Because
So my concern there, I guess, is I wouldn't want to delegate the authority to have the site plan be approved or not based on what the garage does instead of what the city does, because the garage is the one that has to grant the easement. If they don't, then the applicant's stuck and they can't do anything. And so I'd be a little hesitant to have, the planning commission, so have the outcome of what happens to the applicant here be, what the neighboring property does. That's not something that I guess I would be totally comfortable with. I mean, as long as they have access, that's fine. I would definitely encourage, and I sincerely hope that works and they can get access there, because I think it makes sense to have it.
Is there any pressure the city can bring on to make that work?
To MDOT?
Yeah.
No,
No?
they don't, no,
They don't care?
they don't listen to us.
What about the garage itself?
Government intervene in private business, I don't think we would touch that.
I guess looking at the picture, it's already paved. It's just someone's putting up tires to prevent
Yeah.
something. And if it's our goal to connect all the businesses,
Yep.
can't we suggest?
Well, the other thing you run into is if MDOT has no idea it's there, and they come in and say, no, you can't have it, now you're completely beholden on the garage or whatever else.
Well, these guys are okay. Be the garage would be out of luck.
Yeah,
They got two.
Yes, the garage has
Does
two.
he have two?
Yeah.
There's, so they'd have access either way, I guess, kind of look at it from that perspective too. If the garage is just there running their business, minding their own business, doing their thing, and all of a sudden somebody can say, oh, hey, by the way, you gotta change all this stuff now because something's going on next door. I mean, I don't know, that's gonna be received very well, and I don't know how good of a position the city is in to just go up to someone who's not doing anything and just minding their own business and tell them they gotta make all these changes to their site plan. So I think if we can maybe, certainly the softer approach might be helpful there, and to encourage or facilitate that. If there's something that the city can do to encourage cooperation between the parties, I think that would be appropriate. But myself, I guess I'd be leery of any more, any stronger, more heavy-handed approach, because it's a little unusual. No, it's not unusual, but it's difficult when you have an existing building there. You don't really have the leverage to get them to do what you want. Whereas if they're asking for an approval for something, then you do, and you can make those those requests. But if they're just minding their own business, then I know that I wanted.
Is there history why it was paved all the way across? I guess that's.
Well, I think that gets back to the point that I'm sorry, I'm blanking on your name, but I think it was.
Sam Noon, probably some of you know him, owned all that one time. So the garage of Lowell was at one time a service station, and he built what is my building, and that was all one parcel. Sam divorced, city allowed a split, the wife got what I own, and he got from the garage of Lowell west, all the way past Rite Aid. The city allowed the split, but it was non-conforming. My line is on the building, right up to the garage wall. And everybody forgot to designate that drive. Nobody has an easement for that drive. There's no legal easement. Garage technically doesn't have the legal easement, and I don't have a legal easement. So for us, for him or me to solve it, is to take the other one to court. Right now, the opinion is that they would probably say joint easement, because it sits on both pieces. But the question is, who wants to spend the money? So what do you do? MDOT has the power to move it. They would do. But they're just sitting there sort of see if it would get solved, is what it amounts to.
I think in a lot of cases, when there's something like this that, is largely between two private properties that they would be inclined to not get in the middle of it. So again, I guess getting back to the question, if there's a way that the city can kind of facilitate a joint access agreement between the two property owners to use and share access to that driveway, that would be, I think, the most desirable outcome, but obviously that depends on how the parties cooperate with it and moving forward. So I guess how that happens,
Free
I don't know,
free taxes for a year. Might induce them.
No.
Okay, so having said that, we are back to special land use review standards. Are there any other questions from the public at this point? Commissioners, any other questions? I'll make the motion for the special land use review standards to be accepted. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And that would be, I'll say this, an amendment to that is with the conditions that we have attached, such as landscaping and things of that nature. So, Dave,
I'll
you
second.
second it? Okay. Is there any discussion? Sue, voice vote, please.
Commissioner Cadwalder,
Yes.
Commissioner Ellis,
Yes.
Commissioner Padula,
Yes.
Commissioner Plank,
Yes.
Commissioner Schraven,
Yes.
and Chair Barker.
Yes. So with that, we go to the adult use marijuana establishment special land use standards. And that goes B through M.
correct. All right, so these are section 17.04 FF. These are standards that pertain only to adult use marijuana facilities. So subsection B talks about the separation distances. So as we stated before, 1,000 feet from a preschool or child care center, 1,000 feet from a public or private K-12 school, and 500 feet from downtown. That standard is met. C deals with odors, and it again lists out basically two requirements. One, that they have a air filtration, carbon activated, carbon filtration system and negative air pressure. Both of those requirements have been satisfied. They've submitted an odor control plan with the application package as well. D talks about waste disposal. There's a waste disposal plan that was included with the submittal that includes destruction of any product prior to disposal, so it's unrecognizable and unusable. There's a dumpster shown on the site plan, which includes detail of the 6-foot enclosure and lockable match. Item E it precludes the operation of a facility that also includes a residence, and there's no residence proposed here. Item F talks about any portion where energy usage or heat would exceed that of a typical residential use, such as a grow room. It also talks about chemical storage. This use will not involve any of that because it is only a retailer. Item G, marijuana shall not be operated from a business. It also sells alcohol and tobacco. It's not an issue here, not proposed. Item H, no drive-through facilities, not proposed here. Item I requires ongoing compliance with the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act, which would be addressed as a condition of approval, if approved. Item J, the planning commission may require additional landscape buffers or screening beyond what's required by 4.26. I think that's already been sufficiently discussed this evening. My comments here primarily or entirely talk about the addition, our thoughts with respect to the need for additional landscaping along Main Street, so I think that's been covered. Item A deals with owner and licensee maintaining clear and adequate records. So to that point, the applicant has submitted an inventory and record-keeping plan as well as a technology plan, which describes how records are maintained using metric leaf logics and something called Flow Hub. As a condition of approval, the planning commission may include the right for the city to examine, monitor, and audit such records upon request. And that's always included as conditions of approval, by the way. Item L, all necessary building, electrical, plumbing, mechanical permits shall be obtained prior to operation. There's no harvesting or growing on site here, so that standard generally does not apply as it usually pertains to grow operations, things like that. The last one, if there's any conflict in terms of the act, shall preempt your zoning ordinance, which would also be addressed as a condition of approval. So, on page 11 of our staff report, we list out if the city was inclined.
Angie, if you want to take a second here,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
let's reconsider here the adult use marijuana establishment special land use standards. I will make a motion that we accept the standards as written with our normal conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
And is there any discussion? Sue, voice vote?
Commissioner Cadwalder,
Yes.
Commissioner Ellis,
Yes.
Commissioner Gadula,
Yes.
Commissioner Plank,
Yes.
Commissioner Schraven,
Yes.
and Chair Barker.
Yes. Okay, Andy.
Okay, so we included on the last couple of pages, conditions of approval. This starts on page 11, goes on to page 12, there's 22 of them proposed. Most of these are just things that are right out of the ordinance. So I'll kind of briefly walk through. The first 4 are this, put on everything, so pay their fees, comply with requirements of the DPW, engineer, fire department, et cetera. Submit all their permits to the city, continual compliance with city ordinances and codes, utility plans be reviewed by the DPW, get their permits from the Kent County Health Department if necessary. Number 6, submit any missing site plan items unless specifically waived by the planning commission or zoning enforcement officer. Item 7, comply with landscape standards of 4.26 unless specifically modified by the planning commission, and we'll get to that in a minute. 8, to maintain an adequate buffer between the subject property and adjacent residential use through existing vegetation. So I think that's kind of where the planning commission was leaning there, is just that maintain the existing vegetation in the rear of the site. Item 9, lighting shall not exceed 0.5 foot candles at adjoining private property boundaries according to the zoning ordinance. Number 10, update the site plan to include at least one van accessible 88 parking space on the site plan. 10, designate some place as a loading/unloading zone. 12, get a sign permit for the signs. 13, they'll need a provisional license from the city of Lowell prior to operation, along with the approval, of course. 14, submit a copy of the shared access agreements with LMCU to the east. Number 15, continual maintenance of the landscaping buffers. 16, the city has the right to examine, monitor, and audit the establishment's records.